I started this project almost a year ago to play every 2-color combination in Master of Magic with as many spellbooks as possible. And I am done, and now we get to rate them. This is not going to be a scientific list. There are too many variables. How many opponents you have to trade spells with, who declares war on who, if you find spellbooks or retorts in the lairs, what race you're playing, not to mention the random nature of the world itself, and not to mention my own mistakes and playstyle and how that affected these games. In fact, the biggest determining factor in victory or loss seems to be what I was playing as. For example, the halflings won every single game, and orcs, on the other hand, lost every single game. I may need to make a tier list for those at some point. But that's not today! No, there is no science here. No matter how many pie charts or bar graphs I try to make to help myself parse the data. That said, I'll stand by this tier list, as I'm pretty confident that it's close to correct. Let's start with a quick overview of all 5 primary schools of magic and exactly what I think of them. So, skip here if you just want to get straight to the tier list. Let's start with Life. Life has 10 unit buffs, 5 summons, 8... No, we're not doing this. This is not a helpful way to look at Life magic, or any school of magic for that part. Let's not look at the spell counts. Instead, let's give a general rating to the school of magic at various tasks. Like this. Early game, they are the weakest at summoning, poor at combat-only spells, top-tier unit buffs, and excellent at defenses and gaining resources. I could try to explain how I came to these numbers, how I counted not only Heavenly Light, but also Just Cause for resource gain, as Just Cause effectively allows you to increase your taxes. But at the end of the day, we know that these numbers are arbitrary. I just made them up! They exist to help me show what each school is good at, and more importantly, how they fit together. Life, taken on a whole, is incredible at buffing units and gaining resources. Its combat options are actually quite narrow, with Prayer, High Prayer, and Supreme Light all adding to the theme of making units stronger. Life is shockingly bad at summoning their own units, though. All of their summons, though, do buff the units in battle with them, making them sort of like living prayers, and they are utterly incapable of disrupting your enemies. Death, on the other hand, it's a little bit harder to pin down. It is, taken on a whole, excellent at summoning and combat magic, but it isn't really terrible at anything. It does radically jump in its abilities from one rarity to the next. Sometimes a single spell, like Cloud of Shadow, is enough to carry an entire category. Death is probably best known for its disruption. If you're wondering what disruption is, it's a catch-all category. I kinda put all the ways that you can disrupt other players outside of direct combat. Anything from spell blasts to firestorms. In the case of Death, this includes warping nodes, draining power, cursing cities. Death is infamous in this category. Now, Chaos is, on paper, a little bit subpar. While strong in buffs and combat spells, it is utterly lacking in the ability to gather resources or defend itself, and with only middling summons. However, the charts don't do justice to Chaos's actual strategy, and there is a coherent strategy there. Doom Mastery makes every unit you have into a Chaos creature. Blazing Eyes, Chaos Surge, and Warp Reality, every Chaos creature into a powerhouse on the battlefield. Chaos also has a trio of spells that can best be described as just destroying the world. And this is actually a huge problem for multicolor combinations, as each piece of these combinations that you're missing dramatically weakens the strategy as a whole. For example, having only Doomsday in play will annoy the other players, but it needs Armageddon and Meteor Storm to actually wreck them. Worse, Chaos is extremely top-heavy, with almost every spell I mentioned in the very rare category. In fact, I'd say they have the worst selection of commons of any school of magic. In other words, Chaos doesn't play well with others. That's not to say they don't have anything to offer, or that it doesn't need a little help to survive to the end game, but every Chaos book you're missing will take away from your late game. Nature is possibly the most self-sufficient. They get research boost from the start, strong combat, strong resources, strong summons. Nature might also be the best school of magic for building up your cities. You can get truly massive populations when you combine abundance with changed terrain. Any combination that can help it take and hold more territory will prosper. Sorcery is complicated. Anything that helps sorcery survive into the late game and grants it additional resources will be a top-tier combination, as endgame sorcery excels in every single category. I did not include logistics as a category. There just weren't a lot of spells that would have fallen into that category. But if I did, sorcery all but owns it, starting with Floating Island and ending with every unit they control flying. Sorcery's also got what might be the most powerful spell in the entire game. No, I'm not talking about Time Stop. I'm talking about Aura of Majesty. I can't decide for sure how powerful this spell is. It's difficult to measure. See, if you had absolute control over when and who you got to wars with, that would definitely be the strongest spell. But that's not exactly what this one does. It constantly ticks all relations in your favor. So, if you meet somebody, every single turn you're nudged a little bit closer towards getting an alliance with them. If for some reason you're at war with somebody, every single turn it ticks the relations up, making it easier to make peace and get out of the war. Just getting into 1 or 2 less wars over the course of a game so that you can pick and choose where you want to have your battles to at least some extent is such a massive thing. As I said, I'm a little bit on the fence about this one. If it's not the best spell in the game, it's definitely a candidate for it. I had more wins and less losses with combinations including sorcery than any other school of magic. Alright, let's do this. Let's start with Life-Death. This combination seems like it should be strong in every single area. Skeletons in Heavenly Light should allow for aggressive early expansion, and skeletons with Just Cause should allow for truly terrifying tax rates, strong summons, or strongly buffed armies, or create undead with your prayer-boosted zombie hordes. Basically what I'm saying is this is a very versatile combination, but there's not a lot of actual synergies going on. The best I found was Dark Ritual. It doubled the effects of your Heavenly Light, and Just Cause offset its unrest. I kinda want to play this combination again, as It was the first one I tried, and I wasn't used to playing without retorts. I feel I could play its strengths much better now. That said, I played it 4 times, and it underperformed a little in testing. I'll give it a solid B. Red-green. I had high hopes for this one. It has possibly the strongest synergies in the game. Doom Mastery and Survival Instinct. You could drop land linking on your chaos-channeled hordes. Then there's Raise Volcano and Transmute, allowing you to grow adamant anywhere you want it. You could even use volcanoes together with Change Terrain to remove tundra, something no other combination can do. Unfortunately, despite these amazing synergies, red-green has problems. They have little in the way of defensive magic, and casting volcanoes over and over and then transmuting and changing terrain is a massive mana sink. Without retorts to increase your casting skill, this can keep your spellcasting tied down for extended periods. In retrospect, I find that I might have been better off just summoning something and taking more territory instead. I'm going to reluctantly put red-green into the C tier. Red-blue! Chaos is, without a doubt, the worst partner for sorcery. There are no synergies to be found here. Both sorcery and chaos are top-heavy, wanting to dominate in the late game. Neither really offers what the other is looking for. This is unfortunate, as it is a fun combination. If it actually survives into the late game, it's probably the most terrifying combination possible. But to actually be a terror, you need resources. And any other combination with sorcery, or with chaos, is more likely to get to that endgame with enough resources to actually be terrifying. Blue-red gets the D tier. Next up, we've got Nature and Death, the ultimate summoner's combination. Also the ultimate undead combination, as ironically, Survival Instinct applies to zombies and other undead. More importantly, the two cover each other somewhat. Early defenses and strong summons to claim territory, which Nature can later develop and reap massive resources from. Not to mention all the warping of nodes and everything else that Death can add to that. Nature and Death is just a fearsome combination, and it's an easy A tier. But what about Nature and Life? This one is the ultimate city builders. Nature and Life can get more from a city than any other combination. The highest maximum population thanks to Change Terrain and Abundance, coupled with doubled population growth from Stream of Life, the clearing of unrest, with Gaia's Blessing Stream of Life just cause so you can run max taxes. Finally, late game life drops globals that make every population point generate power and research. Strong summons, strong buffs, this should be top tier! So why did it test poorly? This is one combination I really need to give another go. I think it would perform better with more opponents to trade with, as while the sum of all those spells may be greater than the parts, you have to actually find those spells. With only 6 spell books in each school, some spells are just going to be missing. For now, I'll give it a B, but I really feel like it can do better. Sorcery and Death. Oh, now we're talking. Liches, rejoice, your combination is here. The early defenses and resources that the sorcerer craves, in exchange for the perfect buffs for the undead. No, I'm not talking about using focus magic to reinforce your ghouls and shadow demons, although that is nice. No, I'm talking about resist magic and spell lock. Death has the strongest summons in the game. but they all share the same crippling weakness: low resistance. Petrify, exorcism, banish. So many ways to make your investments disappear in an instant. But for just a pittance, you can massively bolster their spell resistance. Also, this combination has the greatest ability to make a comeback, assuming that you find the right spells. Even if you don't hold much territory, you can warp every node on 2 planes, and then use all of that to feed your summons and time stops. Even something like mana draining looks better when you've got the higher casting skill thanks to Aether Binding. This is our first S tier. But what if instead of death, we went with Sorcery and Life? This is another powerhouse. Early defenses, check. Plenty of resources to squander on things like Time Stop. Oh, check. Large, powerful armies bolstered all to hell to send flying into enemy cities. You get the idea. I don't have a ton to say about this combination, as it's less about synergy and more about just having all the tools that the sorcerer needs to reach late game and conquer the world. This combination is also one of the best for heroes. Life buffs to keep them alive, while sorcery provides focus magic, flight, invisibility, and more. This is our second S tier. Alright, well what if we combine sorcery with nature? You know, this is our third S tier, right? Well, almost. See, it's good. It's really good, but it's not quite as perfect a fit as the previous 2 were. Nature doesn't really need its resistances buffed the way death does. It does have a dynamite trick with focus magic and cockatrices, but a stack of those is a major investment and is surprisingly fragile. Anything with high resist will laugh off the ranged petrification. Unfortunately, still fantastic synergy, but expensive and delicate. Beyond that, early game nature isn't as good at holding territory as life and death are. Late game, this combination will dominate, as sorcery always does, and nature can help it get there with the superior summons and added resources, so it does still hit the A tier. Alright. Life and chaos. You know, when I was young, this was my favorite combination. I want it to be good, but, well, there are some weird synergies in there. Holy Word and Fate Mastery comes to mind. But for the most part, Chaos and Life are playing different games. You might think that the 2 colors with the most powerful buffs would work well together. Early game, that's true. Heroism and Flame Blade is a favorite combination of mine. But as the game goes on, the 2 colors seem to grow apart. Chaos doesn't need prayer, it's already got Blazing March and wants to spend its time pouring fire on its foes. Life has millions of blessings to pour out on its units. It doesn't have time for summoning all those volcanoes. By the end game, Life is trying to make every citizen produce as much as possible, while Chaos is off trying to rip the world apart. This isn't really a coherent strategy. Still, having a wide range of options can be powerful. I'm putting this one in B tier, but only because its early game really is that good. Finally, we have Death Chaos, the ultimate in burning the world to the ground. Not really my style, but I tried it and yikes! It's got plagues, famines, meteors raining from the sky, the land itself rotting, volcanoes rising from every patch of land, rifts opening and swallowing buildings, eternal night, nukes! I mean, This is the be-all, end-all when it comes to destruction. It's also a pretty good combination. Fate Mastery really empowers Death, making every single Black Sleep and Possession twice as likely to land. The early defenses and resources from Death helps cover Chaos's early game weakness, not to mention the good summons. I think I have to give this combination an A. Turns out that Death is the best friend that a Chaos Mage could ask for. And there you have it. Am I wrong? By all means, tell me. I'm gonna take a little break from Master of Magic, and when I come back to it, I'll play around with some mods, but I do intend to give a few of these combinations another go. So let me know if I'm being too dismissive of one, or lifting another one up too highly. And until next time, and every time, this is Hadriex signing off. Bye.